Good afternoon, everyone. We are glad to be back for another episode of Conversations from Stritch. And I am glad to be joined by Dr. Christopher Sint, our provost. It feels like it's been a long time since we have been together on this show, almost a month. And a lot has happened. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday season, enjoyed the beginning of the year. I must say it's been really, really great to see everyone back on campus this week. There's a few things. Monday and Tuesday, I was walking around, going to different, buildings, making sure everybody knew where their classes were. I do want to apologize. Usually, even at the beginning of the winter semester, I drive around in the golf cart. Last year, I gave out hot chocolate and coffee, but this year when I looked at it, there was a lot of ice, and I thought if I usually have to drive outside of the off the sidewalk, and I thought if I do that and I slide into somebody, then we're going to get a lawsuit. So I decided not to go around, but I did enjoy seeing everybody back on campus. It's been really good. And we're going to talk now about COVID, which we usually do at the beginning of the show. And I did want to start out my thing before I hand it off to Dr. Sint, just to say to everybody how grateful I am for especially the work done by everybody behind the scenes for the last month to prepare for the new semester, especially with the increase in cases of Omicron. So COVID cases are up nationally. We have done a good job, I think, of starting up, but it's not without a ton of work behind the scenes by not just the COVID hotline team, but all the faculty, deans, everybody that's been supportive of people. So I just want to say thank you. And so, Chris, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how are things going in terms of COVID on campus?
Hey, John,
how does it connect to what's going on in the county?
Sure, thanks, and hello everyone. Great to be here with you, and I'd just like to extend that gratitude to our community for working so hard these last couple of weeks to get the semester started and to do all the extra work that's required of our students as well as our faculty and staff who've done an incredible job of preparing our campus and our classes to start this week. So certainly COVID-19 is with us in full force this week. We have, we're tracking cases on the website or reporting cases on the website, but they've significantly increased in the last couple of weeks. As we've been working, the hotline team, the campus emergency preparedness team, and leadership team are committed to the health and safety, equity, and student success when we're thinking through all of the different decisions we need to make. We continue to balance our commitment to these values with advice from public health authorities and higher education community, our peers out there across the country. And we continue to use the thresholds that we've monitored really since the beginning of the pandemic to drive decision-making about policies and practices designed to maintain our health on campus, our public health on campus. So since the beginning of the pandemic, we've known we've needed to be flexible, and in retrospect, we've been flexible and nimble in ways that we didn't anticipate, and that continues this week. And we're still committed to holding ourselves to really high standards of behavior, and we're really seeing the positive outcomes of that as we get started with the semester. So we're moving forward with planned in-person instruction this week. Kind of like I already said, we're really prioritizing student success, and this includes an interest in mental health, equitable access to education, and to different learning styles. So what I mean by that is that we have a schedule that's both online and in person, and that's been planned since last semester for this semester. So people have made choices about teaching online or attending online courses in anticipation of this semester. Certainly the Omicron variant makes a difference in terms of the level of comfort that people have. And we continue to be happy that we can provide both in-person and online opportunities. But we have students who are really, really good at and comfortable learning online, and we have students who are struggle for one reason or another with online education. And it was really important to us as we got started with this semester that we provided both of those opportunities. We're a really highly vaccinated community, which makes a positive impact on the spread of COVID and on the severity of the cases in our community. And so that's really helped us as we've gotten started this week. And as I said, we have a mix of modalities. Many classes are already scheduled to be online. We've also really supported instructors who would like to start a class online this semester for the first meeting or the first week for their own reasons. And we're monitoring that and making sure we understand all of the mix that we have, but it will likely be in flux for the next couple of weeks and settle as the semester gets going. So, and that's true in part for employees as well in terms of people working, and again, prioritizing student success, having people available on campus to support students in all of the different ways that we do so well here at Lewis, and also allowing for some flexibility around working at home and virtual support for our students as well.
So could I just pause for a moment? I know we have multiple things to do here, but you mentioned in there that not every school is doing this, and I guess I just wanted to hear you talk a little bit about this flexibility. It's really a flexible approach to the changes that are going on, and I think we've done a good job overall. But there have been schools, because our audience knows, there's been schools that have decided to just even postpone the start of the semester for a week or two, go online for a week or two at the start. And the model you're talking about is really we haven't done anything except what I would say maintain the standards we've had really for the last 2 years as the baseline, and then given certain people flexibility to make some of their own choices.
That's
Students,
right.
faculty, employees, managers of employees who, this person really feels like they need to stay home. So maybe you could talk a little bit about how you and others thought about that as these other options came in, right? Some people said, as a campus, we're going to shut down for 2 weeks, or to the choice of this kind of flexible approach that you've described.
Yeah, well, it's all of those factors I just talked about went into that discussion and into the consideration, the type, and I guess first of all, I'll say both of us and many other people in our leadership group, as well as our health leadership group, are in constant contact with other universities and our different communities and what we call peer institutions, our local peers, our neighbors in the Chicagoland area, as well as across the country. And we are, comparing our own experiences, and different institutions make different decisions for really specific reasons connected to who they are and what they do. And I would say, and I don't really want to compare us to others, we do know that 90% of the institutions across the country did start on the same day that we did, or in the same regularly scheduled semester, and so that is the norm. But it has been really nice that we had that flexible schedule already built, and that we are allowing for more flexibility by our instructors, and that's really made it easier for us to do that decision, where there might be another institution that has gone completely back to face-to-face instruction in the fall, and would struggle with having that combination of modalities to be offered this spring that we're already doing. That's just one of many examples.
Yeah.
Our own feelings about health and safety, the vaccination rate, the ability of our amazing staff and the hotline team and others to support incorporating our community into our campus community in the beginning of January is another big factor that went into it. Other institutions that some especially that are much larger have struggled more with being able to manage that many people through this very active variant. So those are some factors.
Yeah, and I guess before we move to the threshold conversation and some of the more, details around this, where I wanted to reemphasize is really what I was trying to get at, is that there tend to be stories in the paper about what I would say the the people that are maybe not on the outside of the norm, right? The majority, 90%, whatever, of campuses are starting, they're doing in person, they're doing very similar things to what they did in the fall. And then there's a case of this school or that school that is doing something different, and it tends to get noticed more by the media because it maybe falls outside of what is
Yes,
the norm.
that's right.
And that's really what
Yeah.
we're wanting to say to the community is the majority of other schools that they would look at, not only here in the Chicagoland area, but beyond, would be doing a very similar thing to what we're doing.
Yeah, that's right. And so some of the things that we do continue to consider, I think maybe, we talk about this a lot, or we mention it a lot in my messages, but we don't really go into great detail about what some of the specifics are about the thresholds that we look at or the data that we look at. So I thought I might just share a few of those things just to give people a sense of what our conversation is like. And again, it's a conversation, it's not a bunch of triggers and so on, but it really helps in terms of how we decide specific mitigation strategies related to specific aspects of what we're looking at. So we look at 7-day averages of new case counts for a range of different populations: residential students, all students, faculty, staff, and our whole population. And our ability to support different groups varies depending on the kind of the level of connection to the campus and so on. So that's why we have kind of different analysis for each of those different groups. Our ability to support the work that goes on campus, for example, is one consideration for our faculty and staff numbers. Our ability to manage the public health of the residential population is another consideration, and it's a little different for the number of commuter students who are coming to class a couple hours a week or 3 hours a week. To consider. All of it's important, but all of it kind of is slightly different analysis. Similarly, we consider the quarantine and isolation numbers, the available number of isolation beds that we have on campus set aside for COVID is one factor, but also just the support. We really, it's important to us to treat students who are in isolation, all students, but especially students who are on campus in isolation, really well through some of the kind of holistic support, mental health support, quality of life support through isolation, as well as food. So at some point we limit the number of people we can feel like we can really take care of. We're nowhere near that limit in our current environment, but that's something we consider. And then really more generally, we're really, as we know, for anybody who's watched this show, for subsequent weeks in a row or any number of, we really are interested in what's going on in our local community and in our greater Chicagoland area, Will County, state of Illinois, and so on is the information we're paying closest attention to, as well as our internal community. Because the semester is new and registration is really complete on tomorrow, the end of the first week, we'll start reporting next week on the vaccination rates of our internal community. We expect it to be similar to what it was last semester, with really, really high vaccination rates in the low 90th percentile, or 90 percentages for each of our populations or higher. I'll also just mention briefly, without getting too specific, with details that we have been doing testing on campus, and we'll talk more about testing with a guest in just a second, on campus this week as a requirement for residential students. And I know many other members of our community have been tested, but we've done about 600 or so tests this week so far, or had results from about 600 so far, and our positivity ratio in our internal community is about 8%, or a little bit less than that, in that first group of 600, and that is significantly lower than the county or state numbers, which are in the low 20s for percentages, and so we feel really good about that, and that's a result of our behavior, a result of our vaccination rates, and so on, is really showing through those numbers. So we are, I just want to maybe, before we invite our first guest in, I just want to remind people of all of the mitigation measures that have been put into place, both in the fall and in now some new ones for the spring. So we require the vaccination. The booster is required for eligible people who are eligible for the booster by March 14th. We require submission of a negative test we required one for all athletes and residential students returning to campus, and then additional testing for the second week after move-in, which is this week. And then I'm announcing today, now, and in my email later today, that residential students will need to continue testing for 2 more weeks. So I want to just explain that a bit. I mentioned that we are really focusing our mitigation efforts on those numbers that we talked about that we're paying attention to. We do see, because we're testing so many residential students, we are seeing more positive cases in our residential population than in the employees, faculty, staff, commuter students, and so on. So we're really focusing, we want to continue to focus mitigation efforts on that residential population because they are the most, it's the place where we're seeing the most positive cases by percentage, and it's also a higher risk group because they're on campus interacting more often. And then we announced last week a reduction of campus events to a 50-person maximum through the end of January, and we'll continue to do weekly testing for unvaccinated individuals in our community. People have received exemptions, and as always, we have a face covering policy, mandatory reporting of exposures and positive tests to the hotline team, and I've been asked to emphasize that please use the app for that reporting whenever you can. And then today, tomorrow, and every day that we are in session through the end of the month, we're doing PCR COVID-19 testing for the Lewis University community, 9 to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. So that was a really complicated way of saying we're testing today, tomorrow, Tuesday through Friday next week, and Monday through Friday the subsequent week. So we're taking the Martin Luther King holiday off, but other ways, every day that we're here, we're providing 9 to 4 testing. And my email today will have, and the website has a link to how to register for that. Reminder that there are no out-of-pocket costs with insurance or use of other federal programs for the uninsured. And we'll be sharing that registration information later. And then also today, this afternoon, we have a Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson vaccine booster clinic in the Borromeo, flight deck in Borromeo, St. Charles Borromeo Hall, held for anybody in our community who would like to get the booster and is eligible for the booster. So please, we encourage you to do that, and a reminder to bring your vaccine record. That booster clinic in St. Charles Borromeo flight deck is 1 to 5 p.m. And also next week.
So just a quick, because over break, I was tested, and it took a long time to get the test results back.
Yes.
Done in Plainfield, near my home. The testing that's being done on campus, the return rate is much quicker than I think what it is in Will County in general. Maybe you could just say something about that.
It's about, I did it too last week, and it took about 5 hours. It was wonderful. It took, I should be clear, it took 5 minutes to do the test, 5 hours to get the result. So that 5-minute part is also a really great part of what we're doing here. And I think our guarantee or our basic thing is 24 hours. Especially with the increased testing that we're doing, and the company Lucid that we're working with now is a slightly longer turnaround, but it's really regular and routine, 24 hours. It might be a little bit less than that, but
again, I think is just great for people in our community that know somebody. Mine took 6 days to get and it was I think it was the 30th of December. And then, and there were some holidays in there, but
yeah, I know it's.
But it was a long wait to get the results.
And I know that's been really frustrating for many of our students who are required to test to move into campus, they didn't anticipate that wait because it's a new phenomenon, and so it's been great to be able to offer these clinics on campus for people who haven't been able to get their results back. So we'd now like to introduce a really brief guest, surprise guest, Nancy Ryland, professor of nursing and special assistant to the provost for our COVID-19 response. And we're ready to welcome her in. There she is. There
she is.
See her. Hi, Nancy.
How are you, Nancy?
Oh, she's leaving
she
us.
walked away.
I'm not sure. Maybe we should move on without her. She's close
Well,
by, but
she's right there. Maybe that was the 3-second cameo. I don't know if she's...
I should explain. She's at the testing clinic,
Yes, right,
working, and we thought we might be able to touch base with her briefly, but I think
she might have gotten called away. So a couple things, just to comment, because she may come back and then we'll move on. But I think it's so great that we're doing the booster on campus. And just to reiterate, there she is. To reiterate what you said, people will need a booster by the Monday when classes start after spring break.
That's right.
And they can get a booster today on campus if they qualify because they've had a long enough period between when they had their second shot and now, and that's all on the website and they can figure all that out. But that's a great opportunity, I think, for people in our community to be able to, again, walk in and quickly get boosted. So great thing. So I don't know if Nancy's going to join us or not. I've seen her up there a couple times. Looks like she's maybe back. She's talking to somebody in the background. She might be busy. She's over there at the, which is great. She is at where we're getting tests for people.
She's at the testing site.
And she's in the midst of, people probably asking questions about testing. So we understand that's a busy, complicated thing. But we thought if we could, go live to the testing site, it would be great. But we may not be able to do that. So if she comes back, I'm going to switch to my next thing, which is about athletics, and then maybe we'll come back. I did want to say that, as we all know, the Will County in Illinois has been hit hard by the Omicron wave, and athletics has had to deal with that as well. So we do want to, I want to emphasize that we feel for the students who have been impacted by certain games being impacted, being canceled. I know we ended up having to cancel some of the men's basketball games and the women's basketball games. So that is really unfortunate. Men's and women's tonight, who were supposed to play against Missouri St. Louis, has been canceled, as has our Lewis Academy of Coaches induction ceremony, which is planned for Saturday. That's a really great event where we bring in coaches that coached here in the past and made such an impact. Our men's and women's swimming meet against the University of Chicago, which was scheduled for Friday, has also been canceled. But the swim meet, the tri-meet against Olivet Nazarene and Davenport is still scheduled to go on Saturday. Men's volleyball hosted and defeated Maryville in a sweep on Tuesday, and they'll play again tomorrow night, Friday, against New Jersey Institute of Technology. Men's bowling will compete this weekend at the Storm Baker Challenge in Addison, Illinois, and our men's and women's track and field teams are competing at the Sean Brady Open on Saturday. And, we also heard, Chris, I know this will be on our show next week, but just maybe a little shout out that our team also got invited to a Catholic Invitational at Notre Dame the following weekend, which is quite a honor, actually. And of course, we've done very well outdoor and indoor track. So it looks like Nancy is here with us now. So before we go on to talking about faculty news, maybe we can bring on one of our faculty members.
Yeah, let's do that. Nancy, can you hear us?
I can see you in the background. I just can't hear you, Nancy.
We can't hear you.
All right. Well, Nancy, let me just say, I hope you can hear us, even if we can't hear you, that I'm so grateful for you and everybody over there that is making this testing possible for our community. So thank you for that.
And for the booster clinic this afternoon, which she's also responsible for. So wonderful. And We also just wanted to recognize that we have nursing students in the building there with Nancy who are, you probably saw them when you tested last week, as I did. It's so wonderful to have our students getting this experience of working these clinics, both the testing and the booster clinic. So I think we will say goodbye to Nancy. It looks like she's not going to make it to talk with us, but it was a good effort.
It was.
We got an image of the testing clinic.
Yeah.
So some other news about our faculty and staff, or the campus in general. We'd like to congratulate Dr. Gina Martinez, Associate Professor of Computer Engineering, who received a $206,000 grant from the National Science Foundation to develop and study novel pedagogical techniques that support the formation of 21st century engineers. Dr. Martinez plans to integrate the Internet of Things and state-of-the-art software algorithms to build and study the impact of ambient and automated classroom technologies in the education and training of the next generation of engineers.
Wow.
So that's pretty cool. I would love to talk with her more about that sometime in the future, both making the profession of engineering better and also just doing really leading edge teaching in the classroom in terms of, and having support of the National Science Foundation to experiment in that way is wonderful. Dr. Amanda Harsey, Associate Professor of Mathematics and Director of Mathematics, was elected as the chair of the Mathematics and Sports Mathematical Association of the American Special Interest Group in that organization. She's just finished her tenure as Secretary-Treasurer and will move on to be the president, will be the chair-elect this year and will take over as president in 2023. Dr. June Kim has published an article entitled Representation and the Need for Asian American Graphic Novels in Today's Classrooms, Teaching Asian American Histories, which is published by the Annals of Social Studies Education Research for Teachers. And Professor Bob Bergman, Assistant Professor of Marketing and Director of Sales Excellence at Lewis, recently provided his marketing expertise for 2 articles on moneygeek.com. He is featured as an expert in expert advice, finding the right low-interest credit card, and tips from the pros, credit cards for those with excellent credit. So congratulations. Those are all faculty members this week, but congratulations to all those faculty members who are making an amazing contribution to our campus as well as to society and learning and knowledge in general.
It's really, I got to say, it's quite amazing all that happens in a given week or month. I mean, sometimes
that was really
it's a
week. I didn't really go back and look at all the accomplishments
that our faculty do. And of course, we often talk about, whether it's a theater production or, the student stuff that people are doing. And I guess I would also say that it's interesting to see Dr. Harsey's stuff on there, because every time I go to Celebration of Scholarship, she is up there with 3 or 4 students talking about this kind of mathematical look at sports and sports statistics and all of that kind of stuff. So that's, love to see that she's now leading on a national scale in terms of that work that she's been doing for a long time. So we're excited now to welcome our guest. Ray Kennelly, Senior Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer, is here with us today to join us in a conversation about the strategic plan work that we've been doing for really the last year and is beginning to wrap up. So welcome, Ray. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah. So I was wondering if you could just maybe start by talking a little bit about what's been going on for the last year and where we are today. So we've taken a pretty long journey, but where do we sit today, and then what's going to be going on over the next month or so around the strategic plan?
Yeah, no, I think I'd start by saying it's a great credit to the entire Lewis community that we're at the point and the stage we are currently in terms of the development of the strategic plan. In light of really just all the circumstances that you've just been talking about, right? Everything that has been so different in the way the university has been operating for the past year plus. And, we've accomplished 3 major planning processes: the campus master plan work, the branding work with 5 Degrees branding, and those projects have helped feed and helped continue through the strategic plan process that started well over a year ago and is now starting to work its way towards conclusion. And I know I shared, John, there's a little timeline of just some of the key moments in the planning process that we wanted to point out. But
Well, and as he brings that up, Ray, just to underline what you just said, there's so many people on this campus helped out with the campus master plan process. They helped out with the branding process. And I want them, you said that all feeds into this broader strategic plan. So their work is captured within the strategic planning work as well. Not only is it kind of stand on its own, it helps us to understand how to spend CapEx money. It helps us to think about kind of new signage and new billboards. People have probably seen our new billboard. I've been to the airport a few times lately, and
I drive
for
by
a
it
better
every day.
world.
Yeah.
So it's nice. I hope that people who worked on that really see their work playing into that, but it's also playing into this bigger strategic plan.
yeah, and I think that's so instrumental and has been so impactful. It's interesting, with a little bit of reflection, you could make the case that this has been the most difficult period to have gone through a planning process. But I think with the benefit of hindsight, it's been a really powerful way to engage the whole community around thinking about Lewis's future and some of the big steps we'd like to take and some of the innovation that we'd like to see occur. And whether you go back to last April as sort of a community kickoff with Community Day, we had nearly 200 people who participated virtually in Community Day, which was in many ways the kickoff that followed a leadership team retreat and a board of trustee retreat that sort of did some foundational work. But then, as you said, Dave, the process of the campus master plan and the branding plan also had significant interaction and engagement with the community, a lot of survey work, a lot of feedback that has all funneled forward. So just as a reference point, Community Day alone generated more than 400 ideas that have been sifted through, organized, categorized, and then talked about more deeply by some of the subsequent planning team members and theme team members. And so in many ways, this plan that is evolving and we're moving closer toward completion has a real ground up feel to it, right? It has a real sense of community contribution to what the final outcomes are going to be.
Ray, I remember over the different elements of, because you're the person who talks the most with the people who are working with us, the branding company that worked with the signage or whatever, the brand or the company that's helping us with the strategic plan. And I'm just wondering what they have told you about those community experiences, because a lot of times they are doing focus groups or they're reaching out as professionals to talk to our members of our Lewis community. So I'm just wondering what they, and they go around and work with so many other universities, and I'm just curious if there's anything unique about us that
it's a great
pointed out.
question. Lee Insko, who is one of the principals from 5 Degrees Branding, and they work exclusively with 4-year private faith-based institutions. Their comment at the conclusion of our work with them was that this was one of the most engaged, enthusiastic, and committed communities. I mean, they were really excited as they worked with us because they felt a level of energy and commitment and a real passion for the mission of the institution that came through. And what struck them was that held true across all the different groups they talked with. They said some institutions you go to, maybe it's a certain category that is really tied to the mission, but they said here, every group we talked with really reflected that and the work they did. And I think the Smith Group, that worked with us on the campus master plan had a similar, once again, it was the first campus master planning process they did that was more virtual due to COVID, and it was sort of new territory for them.
Right.
And they just remarked once again that the level of participation, the thoughtfulness, the ideas, and the level of contribution was just incredible. It was a great experience for them. And of course, it produces then a much richer end product. And then our Credo consultant, which many people have heard us reference the organization Credo, they've been a part of the strategic plan process to help us with the process and the timeline, and to kind of push us to think through all the variables. Once again, it's been a similar kind of dynamic. They've been really excited about their work with the Lewis community.
Yeah, so I do want to I want to get to what's coming up next.
Yeah.
So and we have some things for the community that are coming up next week. But before we get to that, what was because the easier one, campus master plan, is too complicated, but the branding. Meaning there's too many pieces to it. It's a 50-year plan, basically, right? And not everybody also knows that, because people can have access to it, but it's really a 50-year plan, which is a real, massive scope. But we already talked a little bit about the billboards. The branding plan is already being used,
Yes.
right? So what's the kind of takeaway from the branding that we can share with the community?
Yeah, so the kind of summary line, for a better world, from Chicagoland, for a better world, is sort of the capstone phrasing around the branding plan that emerged from the work with 5 Degrees. And what that really reflects for them, what that really reflects for us, was this idea that everything that's happening at Lewis and everything that our students are doing, they talked so much about how our students are viewing their education through the lens of how they can then go out and contribute to the world and to society, and how the faculty were teaching in such a way, thinking about how are we going to help our students be real contributors to the greater good. So they came through and said, boy, this essence of Lewis is that you really have this tangible quality of people thinking about others and the impact they're going to have. It's really about creating a better world.
Yeah.
And you have this base in Chicago, but you're doing it online, you're doing it in Albuquerque, New Mexico, you're doing it in Oak Brook, you're doing it hybrid, you're reaching from Chicagoland in far wider places, and it all comes back to trying to shape and influence and be a contributor to making the world a better place.
Yeah, and I just find that so, one, it doesn't surprise me at all that our students and faculty and staff would have said that to 5 Degrees people as they were in these meetings, because it really is central. But what I love about it, we've had a couple conversations. We had Brother James on here a month ago. We were talking about Brother Leo's impact. We've had Dr. Shackmuth on here. We've talked in multiple meetings about the Declaration. The broader Lasallian community has been talking about this document. But all of those come together to this basic idea. We're a Lasallian university who work in association to educate our students, who then go out and actually transform the world for the better. And so marketing people capture that in a phrase, right? That's what we pay them to do. And I love this, from Chicagoland for a better world. But it really is then, as we turn to this strategic plan, that is not just a tagline. It's actually fundamental to this plan that we're working on. So how, go ahead.
Can I ask
Chris?
one more question about marketing before you make that transition?
Please.
Because I'm really curious about something on my mind, because you mentioned all those people, Brother James, our Vice President, Kurt Shackmuth. It feels like they tell us a lot, or in my 22 years of Lasallian education, I feel like there's a modesty that's built into the tradition of Lasallianism. And I feel like that is a really paradoxical place for people who are in charge of marketing just to cut to the chase. So I'm just curious, like in terms of how you feel, Ray, or about how our community, how do we help, just for people watching who are part of the Lewis community, who want everyone else in the world to know about these things and our values and our passion to make the world a better place. Like, how does it, we talked about a billboard is one thing, but,
Right.
how can we spread that word, and as a part of this process, because that is a part of this.
And I think a real key outcome of the work with 5 Degrees and what they reinforced for us was that the real power of the Lewis story is in the storytelling by the members of the community,
Right.
not in the marketing spin
Yeah.
that a marketer
Right.
puts out. And so what they've left us with, and now we're implementing, and I hope people are starting to see it through social media, on the website, and all other kinds of places, is really having students, faculty, staff, just as you referenced Brother James, Kurt Shackmuth, sort of telling their genuine story of their Lewis experience and the power in that authentic description of what they're going through, and that resonates so much more effectively externally. That externally people are not as interested in hearing sort of the generic marketing descriptors that any institution or company provides. It's sort of, they want to hear from the real people involved to talk about their story. And so that's another dimension where we're now really trying to reach out to our community in new and different ways to pull out the stories and to then to share those stories across all the different mediums and techniques we have, because we think that'll accomplish what you just described, Chris, is in helping to spread the word about what's happening here in this campus.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
great.
Yeah.
I think it's so exciting. And what you mentioned, Chris, is that, there's a way of, and I think a lot of, just to think about it as a family tradition, families can be humble, but nothing they love more than sitting around the table at Christmas and telling stories, right? About this uncle or this cousin or so-and-so who just got back from this travel experience or so-and-so who just got this degree. I mean, we love doing that, and it's not about being, overly braggadocious. It's really about how much we kind of love each other, care about each other, and revel in the success of those people in our family who have gone out and done things. And we have, basically almost 7,500 people that are part of this community. Faculty, staff, adjuncts, students on 3 campuses. And there are amazing stories to be told. We try to tell a few of them every week, but there are so many great stories. So I hope people will be a part of that the faculty and staff will share their stories, because we have some amazing things to share. So next Friday,
Do you want to put
we
in
have
a
an
plug?
event, right?
We do, and we're really excited as sort of a next stage, and I think it's the next slide, John. The next stage of this process is we are hosting a town hall event next Friday titled A Preview of the Strategic Plan. So we're talking a lot about and around the strategic plan right now, maybe as a little bit of a teaser, but we do want to lay out for the community next Friday the current progress on the plan and really share some of the details and specifics and priorities of that has emerged. It will be a WebEx event. We'll be sending out the link to that. We've done a couple of save the date and put it on your calendar notices, and we will be sending out a follow-up. But we hope to walk through in much greater detail the current elements of the plan, how things have unfolded, and have another opportunity for the community to kind of reflect on it with us and share any thoughts or feedback before we move to the next step, which would be presentation to the Board of Trustees in the February 14th meeting to get their endorsement and support of moving that plan forward.
Yeah, and we say this so often, but it really needs to be said here. There were so many people. You talked about the community day, 100, almost 200 people that were there that day. We hope to have a couple hundred that join us on Friday, a week from tomorrow. But so many people behind the scenes, theme team leaders, theme team participants, people in UPRAC, people in their individual, the deans meeting with their faculty, different departments talking about these different ideas. So there's so much work that's gone into this, and I think I want to just make sure we emphasize that. Friday, a week from tomorrow, we're going to have an opportunity for people to hear really what their colleagues and students have added to and contributed to and modified some of the initial ideas that were out there to create a real plan. Credo's helped us. Leadership team's been a part of it, trustees, but really the core ideas, those 400 ideas you mentioned, have come from our colleagues and our students. And now we want to share that with people and then have them, massage it maybe a little bit before we kind of finalize it and offer it to the trustees. I don't know if you,
I would
you
just
want to add
maybe,
to that.
I completely agree with that. But I guess we also want to emphasize that it's also the members of our community who are going to execute the plan.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
It's not like we're presenting what we're going to do or what any small group of people are going to do. We've synthesized all this input and expertise from different parts of the campus, and now maybe if I were coming next week, or I am coming next week as taking it in, if I were taking it in, I'd both be kind of like interested in how it's playing out. Many people have seen different drafts or different versions or different ideas and see where we're at now, but also just starting to think about, how am I going to live this, or how in my job is it going to be actualized or played out in a real way. And we'll be continuing to talk about that all through the spring. This will not be the only day for that, but I think we're kind of transitioning into that place where now we're starting to see, I see, this is going to be some opportunities for me to do things in my work.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more next week about the balance of the spring and some of the opportunities at maybe more department, division level to really have some direct interactions, as you described, Chris, as to how we make the plan come to life. But I'm feeling good that the community is going to see themselves in this plan and see the work that they've advanced in this plan.
And maybe the last thing on this, and then Ray, you may have some closing comments before we wrap up the show, but the other thing that I really want to say, because I know it'll be said next week, but almost as a teaser or as a kind of what should people expect, is that we never stop doing stuff here, right? So I really want to emphasize to people,
Or start.
they should not be sitting there saying, people have been planning, and now we're going to talk about it on Friday. They're going to vote on it on the 14th, and then on the 15th, wow, there's this new plan. That's not how it works. How it works is we've been getting all these ideas, gathering all the ideas, and some of them were so good and so relevant to the last plan or the kind of continuation of the last plan that they've already been implemented, and they're already, so people will see not just how will I be living it out 6 months from now, but how am I living it out today?
Yeah.
How have I been living it out for the last 6 months? Because we're not radically changing direction. We're putting emphasis in certain areas and backgrounding certain things that we feel like we've accomplished and have become part of the normal way that we live as a community. Other things we're foregrounding because we're saying this really needs some emphasis so that we can make it part of how we live and breathe and act as a community. And that is really, it doesn't, plans happen, they're important, but they're always a living kind of organism, and we're in the midst of that. So Ray, I don't know, last comments or anything about next week?
We'll talk a little bit about some of the significant accomplishments of the current plan, aspects of the current plan that are going to kind of continue maybe in different ways. And I think what people will see in the plan is both some of the more immediate work, some of the in the moment work, but also this notion of the longer term view of where Lewis of 2027, Lewis of 2030 kind of strives and wants to be. So I think it's going to be a really exciting moment.
Yeah. And I guess thank you both for being here.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
As I wrap up, I just want to say again how grateful I am to everybody in the community because they have contributed to this plan, and now we're ready to live it out. But it's really gratitude that goes forward to the whole community. I also want to say that I really hope that people will take advantage of the booster clinic. Get tested if you have any symptoms. That we can't say that often enough. Nancy and our nursing students and lots of other people from the company that we work with are over there every day of the week for January, except Martin Luther King Day. So come over between 9 and 4. Get yourself tested if you feel like you're having symptoms or you've been exposed to somebody who tested positive, and take advantage of our offering this. We wish nothing but the best for students as they start their new experiences. As Dr. Sint mentioned, this is a week to drop ads. So as you go into your classes or you have 4 classes and you really need 5, add that extra class. You can go online and get all of that done. We're excited about the new semester, and it's so good to see all of you back. So have a great week. Many blessings to you and your family.